You're listening to the Men's Dating Mastery Podcast with host Alec Chase, bringing you the experts in dating, sex, and relationships.
Hello, my men, and welcome to MDM. If last week's episode was unique in that it was more informational in nature, then this week's episode is unique because it is very prescriptive. For those of you who have been asking me for more specific things that you can do, this is your episode. Today, I'm speaking with sex and relationship coach Jim Benson about a system he has developed called the 7 Keys to Rocking Her World in Bed. I think the name speaks for itself. Jim and I went into quite a bit of detail covering everything from emotional and psychological elements to physical techniques, orgasms, ejaculatory control, and what Jim calls transcendent sex. Because we covered so much in this episode, it is broken up into 2 parts, and you really do have to listen to them in sequence. In this first part, we focus on what needs to be in place in order for sex to happen. We talk about creating comfort and safety to ensure that she's ready, as well as about connecting with your own desire, which a lot of guys can have issues with. In part 2, we're going to get into some of the juicier stuff like creating arousal, giving and receiving orgasms, developing ejaculatory control, along with a number of other things. Jim even shares a free giveaway that provides specific techniques for giving your woman an orgasm. As always, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Without further ado, here's Jim Benson. Hey, Jim, welcome.
Alec, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So we've got a really juicy topic. I think a lot of guys have been asking me for more concrete and technical things that they can do with respect to the side of their life. So I think this is something that a lot of people are going to be looking forward to. Before we get into the juicy stuff, though, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I'm Jim Benson. I'm a sex and relationship coach for men. What that means is that guys who have sexual issues, whether it's strictly physical, like erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation issues, or it's more emotional, I don't feel like I can connect with women, they're wanting more than I can give, I lack confidence, those kinds of things. I help guys in the entire spectrum of their relating to women. And in addition, I also lead men's groups on a weekly basis, and I lead something with my wife called Shadow Wedding, where we lead engaged couples through working with the dark material that comes up between them that's sure to come out in their marriage, but nobody really wants to talk about when they're engaged.
Okay, so it's fair to say that you are an expert in this regard, and part of your area of expertise is clearly sex.
Yes.
But you weren't always the guru that you are, right? So
that is true.
Yeah, tell us about your journey. What led you to being where you are today and acquiring all the knowledge that you have? What led you down that path?
I'd have to say that it's mostly due to my repressive religious upbringing and late blooming sexuality and my terror of girls and women until I was in my mid-20s. So there were many years there where I had no clue. I wasn't dating women. I thought I was very unattractive. And even after I was engaged for the first time in my mid-20s, I ended up kind of blowing that relationship because of sexuality. And she cheated on me and ended up choosing another man. And it was kind of from that where I decided I got to figure this out. I've got to come to terms with my sexuality because it's going to be with me my whole life. So I did a lot of study in Taoist and tantric practices and ended up doing a number of different trainings all over the world and hiring people one-on-one even to work with me. And eventually I took a Tantra teacher's training. And after that, I ended up teaching Tantra. And in fact, I still do that. Last couple of years, I made trips to Europe to teach Tantra teachers. So it's been quite a path. And I'd have to say that I really identify with guys who are experiencing sexual challenges because I think I've had most of them myself. And over the last 10 years, I've been doing specific coaching with men around sexuality, and I've heard a ton of different issues that guys have, and women actually, because a lot of women, I coach a lot of women as well, because they're trying to figure guys out, or they need a good masculine role model, and I can do both of those for women. So I've pretty much seen it all, and really enjoy. It's my life purpose to share the material that I've learned and to help guys become rock stars in the bedroom.
That's really interesting. It's something I've observed a really long time ago, and that's that guys who become real experts, whether it's in sex or dating and relationships, they're rarely guys that were good or even average to begin with, because I find guys like that, they're content enough, even if they're not having the greatest, success in this department. But it's usually guys that go through some kind of difficulty in their life that turn to this and then end up shooting for the stars, essentially, and really becoming experts at this. Something that seems to be a really recurring theme with a lot of people I talk to.
It's kind of like your greatest weakness can become your greatest gift or your greatest strength. And somehow that's kind of coded into our lives, I think, on this planet.
Yeah, and that's precisely what I'm seeing. Let's talk about what we came here to talk about. So you've got a system that you've been developing, and you called it the 7 Keys to Rocking Her World in Bed. So Let's walk through that. Let's talk about it.
Okay. So I came up with this because I kept seeing consistent patterns with guys when I would work with them, and I could see like, oh, they're just not getting this part. This is really critical for them to get this piece in how they relate to women. And the themes kept recurring enough that I just decided to create this structure called the 7 Keys to Rocking Her World. And as we go through the 7 keys, guys, as you're listening, you might just want to consider, where do I stand with this key? Is this a weak point for me? Do a little self-evaluation and determine like, yeah, I could really benefit by boosting this one. So that'll be a helpful way for you to stay with me as we go through the keys. Okay,
great. So are you saying that this was developed largely to address some of the most common issues that you've been witnessing in guys?
Yes, exactly. So for instance, there's one in there about attuning to women and going slowly, and a lot of guys just kind of zip. They want to get to the goal, right? I mean, that's a lot of the masculine is about. Let's achieve our goal. Let's set our purpose and attain it. And a lot of times in that process, they're not focused on the journey itself. So women love the journey. So if you can take them on a journey or attune to them in that way, it's going to make a powerful impact on them, and the sex and the connection is going to be a much higher quality.
Yeah, that's typical, just that linear thinking that us men have. What are some of the other ones that are a real common sticking points for guys that you're addressing in the system?
Well, why don't we just go through with the 7 keys? We'll go through them one at a time.
That's even better. Let's do that. So let's talk about the first one.
First one I'm calling creating safety and comfort for her before you become sexual. And I got to this one because I was going back through some of my old psychology books, and I came across the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that, Alex?
Yes, of course.
Right. So there's the pyramid, right? And it starts at the kind of, food, water, sleeping kind of things. And then it goes up to things like safety, love and belonging, self-esteem or achievement as you get higher and higher. And then self-actualization is at the top of the pyramid, where you get into things like creativity and higher levels of morality, things like that. So I was looking at this hierarchy of needs, and I was thinking, like, I wonder what a feminine hierarchy of needs would be, where really great sex or transcendent sex is at the top. Well, what would a woman need to have in place for that to happen? So I started thinking, like, really good sex is at the top. So some of the things at the bottom would be like bodily needs are important. Let's just say she's, is she hungry? Is she thirsty? Is she feeling pain? She's having cramps of some kind. Is she sleep deprived? Maybe she's having strong hormonal surges. So if she has a strong bodily need, then you can ask her directly about any of them if you're suspecting that they might be influencing her. Like how can I help is a good question to ask, or make her some food, or give her a foot rub, or run her a bath, suggest she takes a nap or something like that. So you want to take care of the bodily needs first. That's at the base of the pyramid for this, what I'm calling feminine hierarchy of needs. Then you're going to want to go to the safety and security level. Does she feel safe with you? Does she trust you physically and emotionally? Can she relax and let go while she's with you? So in a short-term relationship, let's say, guys, you've picked up a woman at the bar and you're like, well, how do I handle the safety and security issues? It's not like I'm going to, marry her or anything. And so you need to make her, though, comfortable in your presence. And that alone, if she feels really comfortable with you and she feels secure with you, that might be enough for her to have sex with you. But as relationships unfold, as time goes on, her need for safety and security will increase. And some women won't feel fully secure until you actually marry them. So that's the safety and security issue. You want her to feel safe.
Actually, can I interrupt you on that one?
Absolutely.
So when you say that as the relationship unfolds, the needs for safety and security increase, can you just explain that? Why does it increase over time, and in what way?
I've been super curious about this as well, but I just noticed that guys that I was coaching, they'd be with a woman for 2 or 3 years, and the woman would start to have these like breakdowns, or she'd cry and she'd be upset, and he was like, I don't know what's going on. And I saw enough of a pattern, and what would happen is then they would step it up, they get engaged, or they do something, they take it to the next level of security for her, and then everything would smooth out. Like she would calm down and she'd feel like, okay, we're going somewhere. It's like the man needed to navigate to a place of clarity and where he was going with the relationship, and clarity, some kind of clarity within himself and his own purpose. And then the woman would kind of soften and relax and surrender even more. It's almost like there's layers around the feminine heart. And you start at this kind of outermost layer, and as time goes on, she's letting you in more and more deeply to the deepest center, like the creamy caramel center of her heart. And in order for that to happen, you have to pass a number of tests and challenges. And the final one may be, for most women, he's willing to marry me. He's willing to have a baby with me. He's willing to commit his life to me. Those kinds of things are what will make her feel most safe and secure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've observed that in my own relationships, but I also found it kind of almost counterintuitive that I guess I would be inclined to think, well, you already know me, you've already slept with me, so you should already be feeling safe and secure with me. Why would that need go up? But it clearly does. I've always found that really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a total different mindset of the feminine and masculine minds. It's like you can't apply the way you think about things and imagine that she's just like a guy with the curvy body and less hair. She's got a whole set of instructions inside of her that are different than ours.
Yeah, but from a guy's perspective, that's exactly how I would think. But if you put yourself into her shoes, I think you can make sense of it, because as the relationship unfolds, she's allowing you deeper into her world. And so that need for safety will then need to increase correspondingly. So it does make sense to me, but I don't think it's necessarily how we think intuitively to begin with. Anyway, before I throw you completely off track, going up the next level.
Yeah, so the next level, and actually these are all kind of in the same level as phase one. It's the essentials. Another one would be low self-esteem. So if she's mentally beating herself up, she won't be feeling very sexy. If she's thinking she's fat, if she thinks she's ugly, those are all going to be affecting her. So what you can do about that is, if she's feeling shitty about herself, your words are only going to go so far, right? You can only do so much in this area. But you should be saying them anyway, right? Tell her she's beautiful. Appreciate her in some way. If she feels more loved and cared for, if you do a particular act of service to her, then do that act, whatever that is. So again, you can't make her feel better about herself, but you can take some steps in that direction.
Right. So you're helping, you're not shouldering the full responsibility here.
Right. And then finally, if she is overworked or preoccupied, not present with you, if she's worried, if she's secretly angry at you, she needs to cry. In fact, if there's some emotional overwhelm going on with her, then you can just stop her in that moment and say something like, "What's really going on with you, sweetie?" And then really listen to her. Give her the room to cry or vent or talk about whatever is going on. My wife and I used to joke that we get into bed to make love, and then like the first hour and a half would be her processing what's going on. Like, here's she just needs to cry. There's the stuff that's backed up. I hope she doesn't mind me saying all of this about her, but that was just the way it was for a little while, and that changed because it turned out then after a while then I needed like half an hour for my own stuff. So having sex has kind of become this whole event, but at some level it was actually creating a lot of intimacy and connection between us to do that process. So again, check and see if there's any anxiety, stress, anything going on in your partner. And all of those need to be addressed. All of these basics need to be addressed in this kind of phase 1 in the feminine hierarchy of needs.
And for that last part, I imagine that if you are challenging your partner to express their anxieties, their emotions, and then you give them your attention, you hear them out, I imagine that probably builds a lot of trust too.
Totally. Yeah. And there's exceptions to this hierarchy that, there are some women who will have sex with you without some of these, phase 1 needs being fully met. And there are also some women who will want you to have sex with them in order to help them meet these needs. Like some women are just like, I feel anxious and what I need you to do is lick my pussy. That's like, that can actually help. So there's no hard and fast rule here. I'm just saying that in general, you need these basic needs met before you escalate into being more sensual and sexual.
Okay, so then once you've met these base needs, or she's met them, or you've gotten there, what's the next stage?
The next stage, phase 2, is working with the areas of first comfort and ease, pleasure and sensuality, sexuality and orgasm, and then transcendent sex, which I put at the top of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. So for comfort and ease, once the phase 1 issues are handled, a woman is naturally going to begin to relax and let go. It just is, that's the case. So there's a couple of great ways to help her drop into this space of comfort and ease. The first is just to lie down and put your body close to hers. The cuddling like this and spooning and being close to each other physically is underrated by many guys. But really, as you hold each other close, your bodies start to relax and begin to tune into each other. And the second way to really tune is start to breathe with her. So if you just match her breathing, track where she's breathing, and start to breathe with her, it's going to bring the two of you into a state of limbic resonance, which is a powerful bonding state.
Right.
So that's the comfort and ease part. And then once you're getting this baseline level of comfort and her body starts to relax, now you can start to touch her in a non-sexual way as a way of moving her into feeling more pleasure. So experiment with different ways of touching and stroking her, from petting her to deeper pressure to light fingertip grazes. Touch her hair a little bit. Touch her with more than just your fingers. You can use your forearm or the back of your hand too.
And so here the emphasis is on sensuality, meaning to stimulate the senses. So which is very different from sexual touching.
Yes, okay. Exactly. Yeah, and some people have what they call the zone theory, which is zone 3 is the non-sexual areas like a forearm, and zone 2 is the breasts but not the nipples or the inner thigh, and zone 1 is the nipples or the clit or the vagina. And they say work outward to in. So start with zone 3, move to zone 2, and finally you'll go to zone 1. So I think I actually agree with that zone theory. I think it's great. And it's kind of different than the basic instinct, movie vision of what passionate sex is going to look like. And not that that's bad, but it just doesn't happen that often in real life. So more often, much more often, women will need to be slowly met and touched in a way that's non-sexual, and then they're naturally going to open up more. So, and I'll just say another thing about touching her, which is touch her in a way that feels good to you, so that you're experiencing pleasure as you touch her, instead of just feeling like, okay, I'm doing this for an effect. It's touching for rapture as opposed to touching for effect.
Right. That's what creates the connection between two people, right? So
exactly.
You're not mechanical about it and treating it like some kind of dials that you're going through the motions just to get to the point where you can start having sex. You're actually enjoying it as well.
Right. That's what I said as part of the journey. It's the path to take that feels pleasurable, not just this end result where you're ejaculating inside of her and the pleasure is only about that 10 seconds or whatever it is that it takes you to do that. So then there's sexuality, then there's orgasm, and we're going to talk more about that. But that's where you shift from the more sensual touch to the more explicit, direct, erotic touch. And that's manually, orally, and through penetration. And then at the top of this pyramid, it's transcendent sex. And I put that here because some of you and some women that you're going to be with are not satisfied with what we would just call ordinary sex. So this is where you would experience extended orgasms, multiple orgasms for both women and men, and maybe some kind of ecstatic sexual moment of oneness. And some of you might have had that feeling during sex before. And that would be that peak of the pyramid. And what is the way to create that in a repeatable way? How can you make that happen consistently? So the keys to that are learning to relax when you're experiencing these states of intense arousal, and also learn to let go of technique, which is actually step number 7 of rocking her world in bed.
Okay. So I was about to ask you about that, but I'll save it until we get to step number 7 then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So great. That's the feminine hierarchy of needs that I created, and I think it's a great way. It's a great starting point for attuning to women where they are, instead of just feeling like I've got to design it so that it's like you move from a strategic thinking, okay, I got to make this happen in this way, and as opposed to just kind of being present with women, letting your natural eroticism unfold with each other.
Right. If I was to sum up number 1 and confirm if this is correct, but it's really about ensuring that she's ready for sex. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And if you really wanted to go deep in this, you could say, make sure you're ready for sex too, right? Because a lot of guys who have issues with erectile dysfunction are not actually ready for sex. They don't want sex, or they're not into it. They're just feeling like, well, I guess it should happen now because it's a scarce product and I've got to deliver now. And, that creates anxiety and pressure, and your cock is just not going to respond to that.
Yeah.
So you need to be also feeling safe and comfortable. These all apply to you as well.
I'm actually really grateful that you brought that up, because that is the one thing that I know guys experience. I've talked to them before, but it's the one thing that guys will never, ever admit, right? They're with a woman, there's an opportunity to have sex. They don't even allow themselves to conceive the notion, and maybe they're not comfortable enough yet. Maybe they've got some hang-ups about, usually it's performance anxiety, at least as far as I know. And so they need some time to kind of get comfortable with the woman and with their own bodies before they can step into it. So yeah, glad you brought that up. Not something that's commonly acknowledged.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys will see someone and they'll be visually attracted to them, but when they're with them in bed, there's nothing happening. And that doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It just means that there's something off in the connection between the two of you, that you had this idea that this person would be a great sexual partner because she's my 10, and when you're actually with her, you're like, well, actually, this feels like about a 2. So it happens way more often than you'd imagine. So, and then, you're with someone, you're like, well, she's about a 6 or 7. And then the eroticism is off the charts. You're like, this is an 11. Oh my God. And it's hard for guys to, kind of put that together in their minds. It's so confusing. Wow, she looks like a 10. It should feel like a 10. And a lot of times it does not happen that way.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually having a related conversation with a friend of mine. He's one of the most mature guys I know. We were talking about being with women and being picky with them. And he goes, you know what? He's been with enough women now, so he knows himself well. He goes, you know what? I will give a girl a chance if she doesn't meet what I want physically, at least not 100%. I will still give it a chance. But I will not give her the light of day if I don't feel some kind of connection with her. He goes, if I feel like we're not bonding, or I feel like there's something negative about her energy, or like she might be a toxic individual, he goes, I am going to cut that tie and I'm not going to look back.
Good for him. That's a great policy.
So that's number one. Let's talk about number two.
Number two is to connect with your desire that lies beneath your anxiousness, your shame, and your self-consciousness. Now, for some guys, number two is not a problem. They're like, I've got no issues connecting to my desire. It's right here. It's all the time. But I'd have to say for a high percentage of guys that I coach, their anxiety, their shame, their sexual shame, what I call toxic sexual shame, and their self-consciousness in bed keeps them from staying in contact with their desire. They've spent a lifetime hiding desire from themselves and from women, right? They're like, it's not okay to have this. I can't show it. And if you're one of these guys, here's what you can do. First of all, I want you to train yourself to slow down and relax when you're in a sexual situation. This is critical, right? You need to make everything go about 25 to 50% slower than you think you need to. And you can use things like mindfulness training or visualization exercises, not in the sexual situation, but beforehand. Meditation practices. Use all of these things beforehand as a way to learn to relax your body, calm yourself down. And then when you're in a sexual situation, you'll just be more relaxed. And when you're more relaxed, now you can start to feel the experience of where is desire in my body, physically located in your body. Is it in my genitals? Is my desire in my belly? Is it in my chest? Wherever it is, that's fine. Just make contact with that desire. And then with awareness, or as some might say, like with consciousness or presence, then act on that desire. Let her see and feel and experience your desire while you are connected to it.
So let's back up just a tad a little bit. You mentioned mindfulness, visualization, meditations. I think meditation is something that most people are familiar with. They know what that is, but I don't know if everybody knows what mindfulness means or what visualizations might work like. Can you explain those two a little bit?
Sure. I mean, my multi-orgasmic lover program is a great step-by-step training for learning a lot of these skills among all the other benefits that it offers. But mindfulness training would be is like an awareness practice. Like where's my attention going right now? And having that awareness of your attention, because it's really the most powerful thing that you have, right? It's your attention. You're paid for your attention on a job, and that's what people give you money for. So knowing where that's happening in a sexual situation can be very powerful. What am I thinking about right now? Where is my attention going? Oh, I'm thinking about how embarrassed I am about my penis size. Oh, I'm thinking like my chest is not as buff as I think it should be as I'm taking my clothes off. Oh, I'm aware that I'm scared just being close to her body, and it's so beautiful. I'm kind of trembling with excitement. What am I going to do about that? Well, that's where you'd apply some breathing techniques, or just learning to relax, the things you've been practicing, where you're learning to relax inside of your body and connect with yourself instead of having the attention be externally focused on this object, this woman object.
Right.
And in terms of visualization exercises, there's a piece in my multi-orgasmic lover program where I have guys connect with their essential future sexual self. Like what's the most positive, best sexual self you could be, and have guys connect with that in the visualization process. And so if you have access to that, if you're connected to the part of you that's powerful, confident, sexy, alive, and you're living that as opposed to the part that's collapsed or feels powerless or not confident or weak, it's going to be a different experience for you in the bedroom.
So the way I'm interpreting the visualization piece is almost cultivating the right self-image. Is that a
Yes,
fair
exactly.
statement?
Yeah.
I think self-image is really at the core of a lot of this. There you have it, guys. Be sure to tune into part 2 where we get into the real juicy part of this conversation. As always, you can get in touch with me at alec@mensdatingmastery.com. That's Alec with a C. Or if you'd like to learn more about MDM, you can visit mensdatingmastery.com. And if you're enjoying the show, then please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on iTunes or in whatever your favorite podcast directory is. Your honest feedback and encouragement is extremely valuable to the future success of this show, and I appreciate all your voices. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Thank you for listening to Men's Dating Mastery, a podcast dedicated to improving the lives of men and the women around them.